It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed, and great to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. There is NFL news to talk about. The Roman Empire has risen in Boston. Will it help to save the Red Sox season? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe the catch of the year in Major League Baseball. Maybe the catch of the decade in Major League Baseball. We'll get to that as well. Patrick McEnroe will drop by the show to talk about what he witnessed in person at the French Open at Roland Garros. The classic between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. We'll get his thoughts on that. Also, Coco Gauff's triumph over Arena Sabalenka as he is back stateside. We'll get some thoughts with him. But we start things out in the NHL, and Sam Yarnell is here. All right, Sam. Game 3 Stanley Cup Final, and Florida runs away with it 6-1. A game that will be remembered as much for the Panthers winning as much will be for a brawl in this game. Not something you typically see in Stanley Cup Finals. Both teams going toe-to-toe. A line brawl, as they would call it. So start there for a second before we get to the game, because that isn't something you often see in a Stanley Cup game.
No, it's not, but it kind of embodies like the entire series, and it's something you'll only see in a Stanley Cup Final game that involves like the Florida Panthers, and specifically these Florida Panthers. It is the epitome of what makes this Panthers team so successful. They're the only team in the NHL that can make somebody so mad, even in the Stanley Cup Final, over the course of, at that point, 48, 51 minutes of game time, 55 minutes of game time, whatever it was. I don't remember how much time was left when the fight happened. Sue me. But a team that can just rile you up that much over that course of time, to the point where you can't do anything but fight them because you can't score a single goal on them, because all they're doing is flying around the ice and beating you up at literally every single turn. So many takeaways from this game 3, Jason, but the main one is just the Panthers are like the most annoying team in the NHL, and it makes them the best team in the NHL.
Yeah, it certainly does, and they get the win to take a 2-1 series lead. I still think it's a long series. We had Dennis Bernstein on the show yesterday, and he and I talked about it. He still thinks it's a lengthy series between these two teams. Nothing has really changed my mind from that. Is there anything though that you see in that game 3 that maybe makes you think this is a shorter series?
Yeah, the Stuart Skinner that hadn't shown up for like 7 straight games finally showed up. The guy could not make a single save, to the point where they replaced him with Calvin Pickard in that third period. That was the thing that if you're an Oilers backer going into the series, you were banking on not happening. It seemed like that demon was exercised in the last round, and clearly it wasn't, because it showed its face in Sunrise, Florida last night. Listen, if that's going to be the case, this team is not one that can rely on Calvin Pickard to come back and win 3 games before letting themselves get beaten twice. That to me, the goaltending, when...
Well, I don't think they're going back to Pickard for good. I just think that was
no, but they might not have a choice, Jason. Like if Stuart Skinner does what he's done in earlier rounds of this very playoffs, they're not going to be like, they don't have enough leash at this point to just say, all right, take another game and try to figure it out. And I know that there's this massive conversation happening in the hockey world this morning about how there's no depth, and you saw nobody around Draisaitl and McDavid last night except for when they line brawled. Well, hang on a second, because I'm not going to say that that's a discredit so much to the depth of the Edmonton Oilers. Did you not see what the Florida Panthers did to literally everybody except for Draisaitl and McDavid last night? If you didn't have a 27 or a 29 or a 96 or a 97 on your jersey last night, you were getting run through the second you touched the puck. They were just getting beat up left and right. And again, I digress to my original point. This Florida team, they just annoy the heck out of you to the point where you can't do anything but square up and fight them.
The odds on the series right now, it is Edmonton plus 215 to win the series. It is Florida minus 265. Now, obviously, if the series goes to 3-1, that number will increase. But this might be the best opportunity if you're going to go grab the Oilers, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I don't know. Last night...
That scared you that much? That game scared you that much?
It didn't scare me away
You're the guy
from
selling
the Oilers.
You're the guy selling stock like after one bad day, aren't you? You're that guy.
It didn't sell me away from the Oilers. I really think that the Panthers proved their innate ability last night, which I think a lot of me going into this series didn't think would get to the Edmonton Oilers, because the Edmonton Oilers have the best player in this series, and they also have the second best player in this series, and they're looking up, having given away a game at home, and now they're looking up at a 1-2 deficit. It's a tough spot to be mentally. Again, especially going back to this point, it's an even tougher spot to be mentally when every single game, the other team is just flying right in your grill every 30 seconds.
Total number of games in the series right now, juice to the under at 6.5. It's minus 184, and total over 6.5 is plus 148, Sam. So it gives you a sense of where Vegas's head is on this.
Yeah. Vegas thinks that this series is going to be Florida in 6, it sounds like. And quite frankly, it's hard to disagree with them from the perspective I'm looking at it from right now. But I will say this, Jason, in terms of just outlook generally on the NHL, it seemed, especially after last night, I mean, maybe even last night alone, Sam Bennett may have earned himself $500,000 a year in addition to whatever he was going to get. The guy is flying around out there. He's proved himself a difference maker on a playoff team. And for a guy who's going to be a UFA in about a month, that is huge. This is a Florida team that we
Sam
need
Bennett.
to...
You should be his agent.
I always have.
You should be his agent, because you've been politicking for him since we started doing this show.
You're right. And I do. I think he's a difference maker on this Florida team, but I think that as much as I've, waxed poetic about how unique and special this Florida team is over the course of the last 7.5 minutes, Jason, this is probably the last time we're going to see a team like this together. So for however many games are left in the series, we got to appreciate them.
Yeah, you've earned your 10%. There's no question about that. We're coming back. We got more to do. The Roman Empire has risen in Boston. It wasn't enough for the Red Sox last night, but could it help them as they try to get back into things in the AL East in the wild card race? We're talking about it on a Tuesday Sports Wrap. This Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap continues on location today. You know where we are today? So all week we're going to be playing Where is Jason Page? Because I'm going to be like someplace different almost every day. Today and tomorrow will be in the same spot. So if you're looking at the show and you're like, why does it look like Jason is in like the basement of someplace? Well, today, Sam, we are doing the show literally from my parents' basement. I am physically in my childhood home basement in East Haven, Connecticut, visiting my parents for a couple of days. So this is a small section of my childhood basement. So I am literally the guy today tweeting from his parents' basement. I just wanted to put that.
You've come a long way, Jason Page. 48 years old, and you're doing a show from your parents' basement.
It is kind of a crazy full circle moment. This house has seen a lot of things. I don't know if it ever thought it would see a television show on 220 affiliates being hosted from it. So that is where we are today. So thanks to my parents for their hospitality. We always thank whoever's hosting us for their hospitality. Thanks to my mom's literally making bacon and eggs upstairs going, Jason, you want some bacon and eggs? I'm like, Mom, I'm hosting a show down here. Let's talk about Roman Anthony, because the Red Sox made the decision to call him up after he hit a 500-foot home run, 497-foot home run the other day for Worcester. By the way, our buddy David Ardsma was over at the Red Sox game last night against the Rays. I'll be curious to see what he thought of Roman Anthony. Wonder if he ever had an 111 mile per hour line drive hit off of him before. Roman Anthony did that in one of his at-bats last night against Shane Baz. He did take an offer, but again, much like Jack Caglione's offer in his opening night, the signs are all there that the kid's going to be all right. Roman Anthony's going to be just fine here in the big leagues, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first at-bat, or maybe it was his second one, he hit a screamer off the pitcher right to the third baseman, who threw him out by like a half step. You run into unlucky outs in like your first couple at bats in the bigs. It just
Caglione did too.
That's right. It's baseball. Yeah, the Victor Scott catch, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the kid's gonna be good. He's the number one prospect in baseball. Rarely does the number one prospect in baseball not pan out.
So now, I mean, look, if you're baseball, I mean, look, we're in early June. You've got Caglione up. You've got Ronnie Mauricio up for the Mets. You've got Roman Anthony up. Marcelo Mayer's up. I mean, all these guys, all these, potential studs are getting their time in Major League Baseball. The question is, can Anthony, and who knows how much time he's going to get up there. Abreu's hurt, so that's why he gets called up, and he's getting an opportunity right now. And as some of these injuries pan out, they're going to have to make some decisions there in Boston. And as guys come back, Abreu's not going to be on the injury list forever, and Abreu's been pretty good for them. So I don't know what their ultimate plan is. If Anthony goes back down to Worcester, if this is just a taste, because Abreu's been good for them. So I don't know where Anthony's going to play.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a tough spot in Major League Baseball. And like, those of us in the prospect space saw this coming because we got to a weird spot with COVID and the drafts that happened in subsequent years and the eligibility issues. And that's how you ended up with, quite frankly, Paul Skeens being as good as he is as quickly as he is, right? And other guys from that draft, right? Dylan Cruz has been an everyday player with the Nationals all season and was for the majority of last season. Wyatt Langford, also from that draft. Nolan Schanuel, also from that draft. These are everyday players. Nolan Schanuel, obviously robbed by Denzel Clark last night. We'll talk about that later in the show. But these are all, the prospect space is in a very unique spot, unique juncture, we'll say, just because of the pandemic and all the changes to the baseball timeline that it had over the years. So we are going to see over the course of this season, and I would say even next and maybe the season after, a weird kind of relationship between those journeyman quad A players who are, some people would say stealing spots from your guys like Cags and your guys like Roman Anthony. But at the end of the day, that's baseball, and that's the business of baseball, and it's part of it. As much as these guys are talented, there is still a business aspect that has to go with all of it. Kyle Teal being a perfect example.
I will say, Kyle Teal aside, just talking about the Red Sox here for a moment, the Red Sox to make the playoffs right now, you can get them at 3-1, plus 310, basically. Would you touch it?
No shot. No chance.
Really? You can't see them going on a 16-5 run to get themselves back in the mix for the wild card? You couldn't see that?
No. Their only chance at making the playoffs is winning the division. The AL East has kind of established itself this year as a one playoff team division. I don't think anyone is buying.
Hold on. There's 6 back in the wild card, Sam. The teams in front of them are the Guardians, Royals, Mariners, and Angels. You're telling me they can't? You'd be shocked if they got past the Angels and Mariners and Royals? Really?
And the Rangers, who they're tied with, yes, I would. And I also am not buying the hype, as I don't think a lot of people are, on the Tampa Bay Rays, who have had a good 2 weeks, don't get me wrong. And Jonathan Aranda is a good baseball player, right? And they've got a lot of young talent. And I don't think anyone's buying in on the Toronto Blue Jays right now either. I think the AL East, again, as you and I have talked about on the show, there's going to be a division winner, and that division winner will earn their spot in the playoffs. But I don't think anyone else from that division is going to really have a chance. We're talking about a Texas team that has played well below their level. We're talking about an AL West that is probably going to end up sending 2 teams. An AL Central that's overperformed as well this season. I just don't think that the AL East.
I like that number on the Red Sox. That's got enough. I think there's enough value there. I could see this team going on, a 16 out of 20, a 16-5 sort of run here in the middle of the summer to get themselves back in the mix.
Garrett Crochet could start 5 games in a row, but he can't. Like, the fact this team has no bullpen whatsoever, potentially one of the worst bullpens in baseball, and a starting rotation that ain't that great. I mean, everyone's waiting for the Brian Bayo turnaround, right? Again, Garrett Crochet is amazing. He cannot pitch every day. Lucas Giolito, horrible. Walker Buehler getting thrown out of like every start at this point. The pitching rotation is not there for them to be competitive. Every game's going to be what you saw last night, a 10-8 loss.
It sounds weird that I'm the one saying it, being a Yankee fan, but give me the Red Sox at plus 310. Sam, not so much. We're coming back. Patrick McEnroe stopping by the show. He's probably jet lagged, fresh off his flight back from Paris. We'll talk Roland Garros and what it means going forward next. Welcome back. This Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. I would have had him yesterday if I could, but he was literally flying from Paris to New York, so that wasn't going to happen. So I got the next best thing. We got Patrick McEnroe today. ESPN, TNT does a great job on the tennis. You saw him for the last couple of weeks on the Mac Zone. You saw him on the broadcasts of some of the matches. By the way, where were you during the Djokovic Center? Were you doing like TNT Europe or something?
You talking about the semifinal?
Yeah.
Or the
final?
The
final. Sinner.
I was doing studio for the final,
so
I did the pre-match, the studio, and post-match. So I was in the studio with Agassi, Courier, Lefko, Sam Query. So it was a lot of fun. So I didn't actually call the match. I called the semi between Djokovic and Sinner.
I gotta say, by the way, Agassi's really good.
Yeah,
I wish he was doing more television, because honestly, his analysis. It's really I didn't expect him to be as sharp and like the real nuances of the sport and really like the technical side of it. I was very impressed with what Agassi brought to the table.
Yeah, he's always been like that. So that to me it wasn't surprising, because I've had dinners with him and known him for many years and done a little bit of TV with him, actually in Vegas when they did that EXO with Alcaraz.
I remember.
And Nadal.
Yes.
Yeah, but I wasn't surprised. He breaks it down like as good as anyone from really detailed stuff, and I thought he was tremendous in the studio, and he was a breath of fresh air. So it was awesome to have him part of the team.
So let me ask you something. Now that you've had a chance to sort of marinate in it for a couple of days, is it as great as you thought it was 2 days ago? Is it better? Is it the same? Is it the greatest match you've ever watched in person? Like, where are you on it?
To me, it's right in the top 5, of the matches I've seen in my years of broadcasting and being a player, being a brother. One of them was my brother and Borg in '80 Wimbledon final, which Borg won. Excuse me, after my brother saved tons of match points in the 4-set tiebreak. Then Borg won at 8-6 in the 5th. That's still right up there. Nadal, Federer at Wimbledon, which I actually called, believe it or not, with Dick Enberg for. It was on NBC, but we were working for ESPN, but we called it in case it became a classic, to have it on, which was then ESPN Classic.
Yeah.
So of course that was incredible. Djokovic, Nadal, which is still the longest match. That was in Australia, 2012 is up there. 5 hours, 53 minutes, I think it was. This one was the second longest. You've got Federer, Djokovic at Wimbledon. You've got Federer and Nadal when Federer came back and beat him in Australia down a break in the 5th. So all those are there, and I put this one right in the mix. I mean, it's hard for me to say. I think if the 5th set tiebreak, Jason, had not been so one-sided, which was, by the way, no fault of Sinner. I mean, Alcaraz just simply lit it up in the 5th set breaker. I mean, he was hitting winners from everywhere. If that had been, a 10-8, 11-9, maybe that becomes, 1 or 2. But I think because of the way it finished, even though, the whole thing was remarkable, I can't say I'm going to put it number 1 or 2, but it's top 5 for me.
Where are you? Yeah, I'm kind of interested to get your thoughts, because there's this real contrast between how Sinner is dealing with his defeat and how Aryna Sabalenka has dealt with hers. And they seem to be at the polar opposites. And we're going to get into the Sabalenka Gauff match in the next segment. But I want to talk about how the two have sort of dealt with this. Sabalenka could not be more sour grapes, more angry, more, I lost it, Gauff didn't win it. Whereas Sinner's just like, hey, man, I gave it my all. Didn't seem as torn up as a guy would be after having 3 championship points, blowing a 2-0 lead, is potentially his best opportunity to win on this surface. The difference between the two, but were you surprised at the way Sinner has sort of handled this loss?
Not really, but to me, this was a way more devastating loss for him than it was for Sabalenka. Who I think she was just emotional. I don't read too much into that. I think overall she's pretty. She's very outspoken. She's very, very carefree in the way she speaks. So I think she realized she made a mistake in the way. Look, the conditions were brutal. We'll get into that later. The conditions during the match, but Sinner, no, he didn't surprise me because he's a pretty. I mean, obviously he had to deal with the drug thing, which was rough for him and tough for tennis. But he, putting that aside, the guy's always been an ultimate class act. And I thought the way he came back, Jason, when he was down early in the 5th set, it looked like, if you had asked me at that point when Alcaraz broke him and then had chances to break him, I would have said that's going to be a 6-1 or 6-2 set after losing those 3 match points and losing the 4th set in a breaker. But he got off the mat, in that 5th set. You know what I think is going to happen, Jason? Because of what you said, because of the way he handled the loss, I think he's made a lot more fans than he ever would have if he had won. And I think in the long run, this is a brutal loss for him because, he was 1 shot away from winning for his first title off of a hard court. He hasn't won Wimbledon yet, hasn't been to the final there, had not been to the final on the clay yet. But I think this will make him more beloved because of exactly how he handled it, because that was brutal. And the crowd was against him, not because any other reason that he was up 2-0 and the crowd wanted to see a match. And, Alcaraz has got that flair. He's got that charisma. Sinner is just, very methodical, very straightforward. But that was like a punch to the gut, to lose a match like that. So for him to have the wherewithal to say the right things and I think to believe them, after the match and even in the press conference, these two guys aren't, they're not like best friends, Jason, but they have a huge amount of respect for each other. And I think they both realize that each of them is good for tennis and good for each other, because like the big three who pushed each other, these guys are pushing each other to get better, to work on different parts of their game. Because I got to be honest with you, Jason, there's nobody else right now that's even in the ballpark with these two guys at the moment. I hope that changes. I think there's a couple of guys that could do it, but now.
Well, who? Because that was my next question. We got about a minute left in this segment, so be quick with this. But who? Who else could?
Jack Draper is going to be a top 5 seed at Wimbledon. He's got the firepower, the athleticism. He's got some moxie. He's had an incredible year. I still think Jaire Fonseca, though he was disappointed in Paris with his performance there, he's got the kind of firepower off both wings and athleticism, and I think that could match those guys in the athleticism and firepower department. And also, he needs to work on his defensive skills. And then you've got Menchik, the kid from the Czech Republic who beat Djokovic. There's a couple other guys floating around out there that could be that next guy, but right now it's the big two and everybody else at the moment. And it's up to the rest of the field now to figure out how can they step up to at least get into that conversation.
Patrick McEnroe does a great job. ESPN, also over on TNT, his Sirius XM radio show on the weekends as well. We'll talk about that coming up in a couple of minutes, in addition to the Gauff-Sabalenka match. Lots more to do on the tennis with Patrick McEnroe next. All right, let's take it to segment 4. Talking tennis with Patrick McEnroe, coming off the French Open at Roland Garros. And Coco Gauff getting her second Grand Slam tournament win, this one on the clay, beating Aryna Sabalenka. And Patrick, we talked about it, a little bit in the last segment. I don't know, you say that, she's just kind of a freewheeler and open. I mean, she had time after the match to sort of decompress a little. Then she went into the press conference and said, Swiatek could have beaten Gauff. I don't know. I'm as huge a Sabalenka fan as there is. The whole thing just turned me off a bit. And look, it's great.
Right.
Look, it's great for people in our business because it creates this rivalry now every time Gauff plays against Sabalenka. I thought Gauff handled it beautifully in the aftermath in terms of how she responded to what Sabalenka said. From an on-the-court standpoint, do you agree with what Sabalenka said?
Well, do I agree that she played terrible? No, I don't actually. I actually don't. The conditions were brutal, Jason, during this match. It was, to me, it almost makes a case, and I was asking this of myself and a couple other people, do you close the roof, for the quality of play?
Right.
They haven't really gotten to that, but they're sort of creeping in that direction in some of these majors. So because it was cold, it was very windy. I was out there watching a lot of the match live. And that was the reason there were so many unforced errors. Okay. Plus the fact that, they both hit the ball pretty big and they both can defend well. Certainly Coco Gauff can defend as well as anyone. So, she was out of line. She was emotional, but again, I don't read that much into it. She could have handled it better, but Coco's a class act. She handled it great in her and even, I knew she was in New York doing some shows here and, I think they get along pretty well. They played in the final in the U.S. Open. That's the other one Coco won, where she also beat her in 3. They played a few weeks ago in Madrid in the final. Sabalenka won that. So, they were 5-5 going into this final. So they both, know they can win or lose. And, the bottom line, I just want to concentrate on what happened on the court. The rest of this stuff is, doesn't matter that much to me. Coco just battled better. She battled through it. She dealt with the conditions better.
What's the difference with her with Brad Gilbert and without Brad Gilbert? Is there any? Or is it just a different voice?
Yeah, Brad brought her a lot of confidence, I think. She was at a low point when she lost in Wimbledon, I think in the opening round. And then, Brad came in and said, stop focusing on the negative. You're a great player. You have great legs. Great, wheels. You can cover the court great. Your forehand, so it gets a little spotty here and there, but, best backhand, one of the best in the world. So I think Brad brought her infused with confidence. Remember when Brad Gilbert worked with Andy Roddick years ago? He did sort of the same thing with Andy. Mm-hmm. He didn't really try to, change her technique, change what she was doing. And then that sort of ran its course because Brad is more as a strategic guy. That's what he's great at. I wouldn't say technique is his expertise. And then Coco and her team realized, or, probably her parents are quite involved. We're going to have to shore up the serve. She won with a serve that can break down and a forehand that can break down. She still won the U.S. Open and is still ranked 2 or 3 in the world for the last 2 years. But, she cleaned up the forehand. She brought in a team that focused a little more on the technique. The serve still comes and goes, but it's better. It's more solid. But I just think, she is an awesome competitor at her heart. And even though, this was the first tournament she won of the year, Jason. First, she's final, semi. She's super consistent. And I don't think that she's losing in those finals because she gets tight, because she's got some technical flaws in her game, but those are getting better. But the reason she's ranked number 2, even despite having not won a tournament for a while, is because she's so consistent and rock solid. And that's what got her the win in the championship match in Paris.
Last one, back to the men's side real quick. Is this the last run for Djokovic? Like, if he doesn't do well at Wimbledon, could you see him saying, you know what, I've left the sport in a better place than it was when I got here. We've got Sinner and Alcaraz who are ready to sort of take over the sport. I have to think there's a part of him that's watching what happens in that match on Sunday and saying, you know what, as good as he still is,
mm-hmm.
he can compete with those guys, but can he really beat those guys? And I think we know the answer at this point.
I think that's a great point. I don't think he is worried. He likes the fact that tennis is in good hands. He'll say that for sure. I think what's more driving his decision is what you said in the latter part of your statement, that the reality that he probably can't beat them in a best of 5 in a big spot. He emptied the bucket.
Yeah,
Jason,
he didn't play bad in that match.
Didn't play bad. He had chances to win sets 2, set 3. But did you ever feel that he could win the match? I never did. And I think he's felt that. And I think that's why when he walked off the court on after that semifinal loss to Sinner, he stopped. He put his bags down. He kissed the clay, because I think, to your point, I think Wimbledon is his best shot. And I think if he doesn't win it, I mean, I'm okay if he loses an epic in 5, maybe that convinces him. But if he plays Sinner or Alcaraz and he loses 3, 4, and 5, I don't see it, because I don't think he's going to stick around to be even 3 in the world. Which to your point, he's legitimately the third best player in the world right now. He beat Jaire easily, routinely in 4 sets.
Yep.
So I think that's the reality. But I think Wimbledon, because of the surface, because there's not that many guys that are comfortable on grass, that's his best shot. And I think the way he played in Paris will give him confidence that he can be a factor and maybe squeak out one more. But I think he's going to need a little help. I don't think he can go through both guys to get the win. Maybe one.
I agree. He's definitely going to need some help. Patrick McEnroe, he does a great job. Sirius XM radio on the weekends.
That's right, 7 a.m., but you can get it anytime. You got the app. You can just watch it, listen to it anytime.
There you go. Patrick McEnroe. We'll see you at the next major, my friend.
Appreciate you having me on.
Patrick McEnroe hanging out with us on the show. We're coming back. We got some NFL to get to next. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Sports Wrap coming to you from East Haven, Connecticut. I'm literally doing the show from my childhood home for a couple of days as I'm visiting family. I was here for a wedding, some business meetings. So, we are on the East Coast this week. Sam and I are in the same time zone for a change, which is kind of nice. It's kind of unusual. So Sam, I got some NFL I want to talk to you about. Kirk Cousins gonna report to minicamp, it sounds like, and I'm guessing at this point, if I'm the Falcons, and frankly, if you're Cousins, I think you're okay with this. The idea probably is to do what we said Aaron Rodgers should do, which was wait around, see if somebody gets hurt, and then you've got a chip to potentially trade. And be able to make some sort of deal, even if you're going to have to pick up some of the salary if you're the Falcons. I'm guessing at this point, one of two things. Either they wait to see if somebody gets hurt, or Michael Penix Jr. regresses, and they make a decision to go back to Kirk Cousins. Remember, this is the Falcons. Nothing would shock me. That is also an option that could potentially happen. If Penix struggles, you go back to Kirk Cousins. Or if he gets hurt, it gives you the option to go back to Kirk Cousins. But clearly, they're not in any rush to do anything with Kirk Cousins right now.
Yeah, I think that this is also a part of the NFL media cycle, right? Because it's June. It's not like he's missing out on a ton. And, especially with the trade candidates we talk about, right? He's most likely going somewhere where there's an offensive coordinator and an offensive scheme that he's at least somewhat comfortable and familiar with. So I don't expect Kirk Cousins to start the season with the Atlanta Falcons. I think that a lot of people in the NFL are kind of in that same boat. It seems like he's going to find himself a suitor and then come to the Falcons with that rather than the other way around. And that's kind of how the Falcons seem to want it to play out. So that's fine. I don't know. Again, it does feel from a Falcons perspective like a little bit of a reach to do what they did to go to Michael Penix late in the year and then kind of just be like, all right, well, the guy coming back off the torn Achilles wasn't exactly what we expected him to be the first season he came back off the torn Achilles. So we're just kind of done with it. We got to prove that we were right in making that decision to draft Michael Penix. So we're just going to kind of ride with him. Yeah, it seems pretty inquisitive or pretty puzzling of a scenario if you're the Atlanta Falcons in an offense that finally felt like it was starting to blossom last year. Regardless, another year headed towards the bottom of the AFC South for Atlanta and NFC, for Kirk. It's an NFL where respect is a real thing, right? So he's going to get traded somewhere where he will be given a fair shot, and he'll continue to be the Hall of Fame bag securer that he is, and probably make another $100 million in the NFL.
I think he might have gotten his last big bag, much like Aaron Rodgers. I think he might have gotten his.
That's what we thought last time.
Yeah, that's true. I still think I still think what ultimately winds up happening, as it does every year in this league, somebody gets hurt. Somebody winds up getting hurt. You know, I mentioned the scenario of the Rams quarterback, Matthew Stafford. You know, how many times does Justin Herbert go down with an injury? Or we've seen Trevor Lawrence go down with an injury, or Dak Prescott goes down with an injury. I mean, we see it time and time again. A contender is going to lose a starting quarterback. We aren't rooting for it. We don't want to see it. But somewhere, somebody's going to go down, and Kirk Cousins just has to keep himself ready for that scenario, because it will transpire, and he's going to get an opportunity somewhere, Sam. There's no doubt in my mind. He's going to get an opportunity somewhere, as long as the Falcons and whoever fill-in-the-blank team is can make a deal work as far as, you know, who takes what salary and what the Falcons get in return, if anything.
Yeah, but the Falcons, unfortunately, again, is kind of just a detriment to the organization, and just another example of how the Falcons completely dropped the ball with this entire thing. They're in a horrible negotiating spot. They're not going to get, they'll be lucky to get a bag of footballs for Kirk Cousins, because they overplayed their hand like to the max. They put all their cards out on the table and they had nothing. So
yeah,
it's just funny.
I know, I get it. I get what you're saying. Let me get to Jaire Alexander, because I don't know about you. I was kind of surprised that it got to the point where they just said, you know what, we're going to throw up our hands and we're just going to let him go.
Yeah, I mean, so in talking to people around, or I guess I should say familiar with the Packers and their front office after this move, I don't understand it either. It seems like he wanted a new contract.
Yeah.
The Packers wanted to give him a new contract, but the two numbers were different, to the point where they continued negotiations beyond June 1st and then designated him as a post-June 1st cut. Now, again, NFL contracts, like, notoriously one of the most complicated in the NFL salary cap, one of the most complicated to manipulate and maneuver around ever, right? That's why people get paid literally millions of dollars to do it every year. I think that they ended up owing him more money because they cut him, like, when they did, rather than 5 days earlier, which is just another questionable thing. Now, from an on-the-field perspective, you're a Packers team that doesn't have a cornerback one in the best wide receiver division in football. Head scratcher.
Yeah.
Every which way.
Well, he's also been injury prone, and I think that may have played some into, you know, why this contract stalemate was what it was. It was something team president Mark Murphy actually made reference to in his comments after this whole thing fell apart yesterday. All right, we're coming back. Odds and ends. Some baseball talk next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby. From my childhood home, if you're looking at the background and saying, that does not look like the Las Vegas studio, it is not. I am in East Haven, Connecticut, my parents' childhood home. Today, doing the show here today and tomorrow. Then we will be in Hartford on Wednesday and Thursday. So, good stuff. Thursday, by the way, for those in Connecticut, watching us on WWAX, The Wax, our show on every night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I will be throwing out the first pitch for the Hartford Yard Goats on their Pride Night on Thursday night. That's the AA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies. A lot of great talent there. I will be throwing out the first pitch for the Rockies AA affiliate on Thursday night. Hope to see many of you out there. Looking forward to that. Other reminders, Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure to do so. The show every day in its audio form, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, it is available there Monday through Friday. Go and check that out. You can watch us in addition to over 220 affiliates around the country. The show is also available, usually, over on Spotify and on YouTube. Make sure to check out the YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. All sorts of great, fantastic content there, including Sports Wrap Shorts. All right, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. They are calling it the catch of the year, maybe the catch of the decade, a catch of a lifetime if you're Denzel Clark. He went way over the wall last night for the A's and took one away from Nolan Schanuel, and the A's wound up losing to the Angels, who are continuing to play some better baseball as of late. But the Angels wind up getting the win, but Denzel Clark gets the highlight of a lifetime, taking a home run away. I mean, just insane what this guy is doing in center field for the A's this year.
Yeah, I mean, great plays, and I saw this tweet actually after he made the catch. It's like every A's game this year is like Jacob Wilson goes 5 for 5, Lawrence Butler goes 3 for 5 and drives in 2 runs, and the A's lose 10-8. Like, that's how every single one of their games goes this year, and it's a darn shame because the A's are a very fun baseball team, and we talked about this before the season started, Jason. The A's had a lot of potential this year, and offensively they are certainly living up to it. The pitching, however, abysmal. And I mean, like, horrible. It's been bad for the A's over the last 25 or so games, but they've got a lot of potential. And again, there have been some flashes. You're exactly right. Catch of a lifetime for the kid Denzel Clark last night. Second crazy catch that the guy's made in the last week. So this is going to become a weekly affair for the guy. The funny thing is, from a stat head perspective, he's got 8 outs above average, which is in the top 5 of outfielders in at least the American League, if not Major League Baseball this year. He's played 16 games, folks. He's got 8 outs above average. He's played 16 games. He's competing with guys who have been in the outfield for 65, 70 games at this point. Crazy stuff. Catch of the decade, too, Jason. Just about a decade ago, we saw almost the same catch in almost the same spot from Mike Trout. Truly incredible stuff from Denzel Clark last night.
Another one of those crazy things that you see in baseball where, like, 10 years ago, history repeating itself. All right, College World Series, Sam. I'll give you your moment because I know you love any opportunity you can get to talk about the College Baseball World Series. So go ahead, talk about Murray State and this amazing, magical run that they're on, and they're going to the College Baseball World Series for the first time. They're headed to Omaha.
How can you not love Cinderella, Jason Page, the 4th number 4 regional seed ever to make it to the College World Series? For those of you who need a comparison, that's essentially one of the bottom 16 of the round of 64, right? So you're talking your your 12 through 16 seeds. That's a 12 through a 16 seed in the NCAA men's tournament, making it to the Elite 8, which is Omaha. It's truly a great story. This Murray State team, the Racers, they are a lot of fun to watch, a lot of offense in that lineup, and credit to their manager, Dan Skirka. Awesome guy, always keeps his son around the team, which I think is really cool and a cool aspect of college baseball that you can't find really in the pros. And it was so cool to watch that game last night. Really great game, close ending, but Murray State pulled it out, and I'm excited to watch the Racers in Omaha.
That makes one of us. A couple of quick NFL notes on our way out the door. Watt, that being TJ Watt, not attending Steelers minicamp. Hey, but Aaron Rodgers will be there. And Terry McLaurin is going to skip minicamp as well, Sam. Just a couple of
the
quick
McLaurin
NFL
thing
notes
is to be expected. He's been mad at their whole front office contract situation for like the last couple months since they were really good last year. I understand it. He's been there since they were horrible. He endured a lot of stuff. The TJ Watt thing is dangerous, man. If they lose him or make him angry enough to want to leave, that franchise is so helically wrapped around an inclined plane.
Put that in the list of
Screwed,
phrases.
Jason, they're screwed.
Put that in the list of phrases of things I didn't expect to hear today on the show. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Patrick McEnroe. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. I'll still be trying to wrap my head around that phrase you just said. We're back with you tomorrow. Kurt Heelan on the show from Indianapolis to preview Game 3 of the NBA Finals. We'll see you then.